so far in the backline that the damage combo and also ETC as the lockdown hero, the initiator of the setup, could just not get close to her anymore without exposing themselves too much, and that was the biggest problem. They couldn't get those one-shots happen anymore. They tried twice against Muradin, but he simply popped Avatar and got a heal.
Yeah, and CE's, not only they fixed the positioning of Shuyu being even further back with some of the changes there, but also sound barriers started to be able to save people. They were anticipating more when Roll20 were going to be going for the engages, and they made sure to drop the sound barrier, just barely keeping those targets alive after the blow-up so that Wind could go into Avatar, or they could make sure to keep the damage dealer alive. Also, I wonder if maybe a different level 20 talent choice would have helped Goku more. We saw the Burning Despair, which is more damage, but obviously they were pretty damage heavy already with the Greymane and the Li Ming. Maybe something like Shroud of the Dead King, of just having that extra bit of time for protection, be more of a threat. But then again, that big damage makes you a threat too.
I think the thought process must have been that they could move him into the backline, reduce with Ominous Ray the damage output of Bala in particular, and then beat that threat in the backline as the rest of the team starts walking up. It was just CE's coordination in the 5-man that was so strong. They struggled in the early game with the rotations out of Roll20 a little bit after that very, very aggressive first minute that CE played there. But we are on Sky Temple now, and Roll20 have settled for first pick, so the map choice went over to CE. Sky Temple is the map, and well, we have a couple of familiar faces here. First of all, Roll20 just saying, all right, Goku Dehaka. That's the first thing that we're going to do here. The impact that he usually has on that hero is absolutely insane, and Dehaka, of course, excels on Sky Temple. And CE says, well, it's fine with us. We are still going to take Karazim for Lure Fool. He had the impact in the game once that he played a little bit farther to the back. And now we have Greymane as well. So already very mobile setup for him. Yeah,
and Greymane, because he is so flexible in how he can play things out, there's a possibility here for CE to maybe play an isolation style composition with the blow up of Greymane and Karazim, or go back into Aloof Fool's palms, and it's just a guaranteed way for them, because he feels so comfortable there, to keep someone alive.
I'm curious to see what the main warrior is going to be for Roll20, because traditionally Karazim and Greymane on the opponent's side just screams Arthas. That's what we've seen in the tournament so far. Then again, Roll20 is a team that when it comes to the main warrior has always also been very willing to throw a Diva maybe out there, Garrosh in particular. In this case we have ETC playing again. He's of course still absolutely fantastic, but I wouldn't have minded to see an Arthas, especially with that Lucio setup that they have now. Arthas against Greymane and Karazim would also have been a very solid choice, but they have now that stun setup here with Justin once again on ETC.
It's actually a fairly common pick that Roll20 plays on Sky anyway, is Justin will play Arthas, but it's just, the ETC is just too tempting to pass by, especially with, so far, just a Greymane and a Karazim. They're going to have to force some sort of adaptation for CE to make sure that they can deal with those with the Moshes. Yeah,
there's no interrupt just yet, so that's definitely something that they might be able to utilize here.
Even Cleansing Touch for Karazim, not till 16 to get someone out, and that's pretty scary to dash in and try to get that on them. So it's a nice pick, and will force some consideration from CE in the next few picks.
CE definitely watched the games that Roll20 played on Infernal Shrines in particular against KSV Black, banning out Vala, so Cure cannot play her in this game. It's definitely a solid ban on their side, but I feel that Roll20 is not going to run into any troubles when it comes on the damage side. They are actually the ones now thinking about banning out Li Ming, not really too keen to get a taste of their own medicine in game number 2.
That is curious. Makes me wonder what damage dealer Roll20 is going to pick up here.
I think they're just really afraid that Li Ming ends up on the side of CE and we do exactly the same thing, because if you have ETC at the front line and then bullet hits, Karazim making things even worse, the one-shot potential is so rough that you have a hard time keeping ETC alive. It's already tough enough if you're running Muradin, and he has a lot more survivability, especially with Avatar, than ETC has. So it's a good ban on their side for sure, but yeah, they still need some damage output on their own.
Yeah, we'll see what that is with both Greymane and Vala as those two main sustained damage dealers gone. Junkrat will be picked. Junkrat's back. He fell off hard in this tournament. So hard. Part of that due to the, well, I would say most of that due to the 30-ish% win rate for him. But he returns for our final game of the group stage for CE.
Now, I feel personally that one of the most impressive Junkrat games, maybe not necessarily on the individual performance, we had some pretty cool plays out of Korea, but from the way he was used, was actually by Roll20 on Cursed Hollow. The zoning aspect was insane. And I would not be surprised if in the playoff phase someone is going to pick that up again, because that was very difficult to deal with for Fnatic who faced that. So if that is being perfected as a strategy, I can definitely see that apply. So it would be more of a situational pick. But right now, for the bot lane in particular, that can be quite scary.
Yeah, it gives some boss control too with his Concussive Mine. We'll be waiting to see what Wind picks up as his hero of choice, knowing Wind and knowing that it's Sky, maybe it's going to be Tyrael, Falstad, and Cassia. Cassia being played more and more in that position if Vala and Greymane are gone. Here the blinds are going to be really nice versus Greymane.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to mention the same thing. With Greymane and Karazim, when you have Cassia and you can apply the blinds, that's really great.
And Junkrat too.
Yeah, Falstad, the boss control once again. And for CE, I still feel they need a little bit more to interrupt ETC's mosh pit. That is a huge threat, so they need to be a little bit cautious here. So that's the one argument why heading into a Tyrael, for example, in this setup, might not really be the smartest move.
I agree. It's tricky. They
could still Muradin.
Yeah, they could Muradin again. Worked out well for them last time. Very stable front damage dealer who has that, or front warrior who has that interrupt Stormbolt. Only other thing I could think of is maybe they'd play Garrosh here, but they don't have what you usually have as a mobility for them, Stitches.
Garrosh also gets pretty much punished by ETC quite easily. But they go for Stitches. Huh. That does not look anything like the traditional Stitches compositions that we are seeing mostly out of Europe, where you're trying to go for isolation kills. We have seen that combo played off with so many different heroes, either with Brightwing with the Emerald Wind, Falstad with the Mighty Gust, Medivh comes to mind, where you can just simply portal kidnap someone. But in this particular setup, if you get an isolation, then I feel like Karazim's 7-sided strike is your best friend together with a quick crisp bullet. But it's definitely a bit rougher for them to get that isolation. So...
especially because there's a Gust on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And ETC also can control the positioning. Drag can help with that too.
I'm wondering, I actually feel at this point that Putrid Bile would probably be a solid argument. There's a lot of arguments to be made for Putrid Bile over Gorge, which is normally the go-to.
Interesting. Stitches, Junkrat for CE on Sky Temple, the final game. Any other thoughts? We've got the double global for Roll20. Looks a lot more standard for this map.
Now, outside from the consideration which ultimate do we go for, do we have any isolation after Gorge, can we really capitalize on a good Gorge? Stitches and Junkrat have actually a couple of really cool synergies, because you can lay traps and just simply hook someone into them, lock them down with it. Also after a Gorge you can try to lock them in place, but as you already said, we have a couple of tools that would be available to deal with that.
Roll20 Esports in the blue, Kier playing Falstad, Damesky on Cassia, Justing on ETC, Buds playing Lucio, and Goku playing his Dahaka.
And on the right side with the 1-0 lead in the series, we have CE with Paradise on Karazim, KTY on the Rat, Aloof Fool on Rega, Shuyu on Greymane, and Wind on Stitches.
Now that I think about it, I like the Putrid Bile 2 for Executioner, potentially, later on, for that Greymane. A lot of possible damage on there. Oh, Goku going for one of his patented early game kills. Not catching anybody with the drag there.
Wants to set a new record for Sky Temple, but oh, there we go, Justing again with a nice initiation here. Paradise in trouble, but can dash out. But that was already a scary moment for CE. I don't think Roll20 has anything to worry in the early and mid game. I'm just worried for the late game.
I hear you.
They seem to be cursed.
Maybe they get a big lead from the first temple phase. They get a structure taken down with a mercenary camp. They go and they harass the bottom lane. They get 10 way faster. They get a boss, and then they just get staggered deaths and win fast.
Yeah, and then you wake up.
My hopes were dashed.
There's someone else who's dashing around, and that's Paradise helping out Luful here on Rega. But yeah, Roll20 could definitely get some momentum here, so I'm not trying to crush your hopes and dreams completely. I am actually still shocked that Roll20 has not won that first map that looked so promising for them. But CE is a strong opponent. We've highlighted them every single time as the Chinese team to watch out for. So in the meantime, Goku is at the bot lane, and as we already experienced on Dragonshire with other teams several times, Yaga has a pretty rough match into Junkrat.
Yeah, he's going to struggle with the damage there, and hopefully for Junkrat he can force some of that essence to be used. It gets easier for Goku to pick up once he gets one who collect. That's his choice at 4, but for now it's a somewhat of a struggle. First Temple phase starting, Roll20 with the focus on top. If you dodge the grenade, you can live.
Yeah, well, so we have a lot happening on the map here, but if you watch the hit point pools of Junkrat and Dehaka, you could see that Goku actually made a move for Junkrat and was able to get him down to half HP, but the turnaround with the grenades was something that nearly dropped the dinosaur here. So we have Falset flying to the top. They're actually attempting to make a play for Luful. Shots are being exchanged, and both teams are by now on level 4. But still, at that bot lane, Junkrat is dominating the lane and pushing Goku even further back.
That is very frustrating for the Dehaka player to try to deal with that. And KTY getting those frag launch charges back will continue his siege. Really fast rotation for CE to go straight down to their Giants. First off, they know they already have this nice advantage in this bottom lane. They're hoping they can capitalize on that by getting their Giants early on, pressuring there.
I'm actually surprised that Falset made the fly up top. I could have seen him try and move down to the bot lane to get a quick gank onto KTY with it. So in this case, KTY is absolutely fine. He did his job on the bot lane already, makes it very hard for Goku to get any kind of dominance here. And it's also making it really difficult for the Dehaka to move away from the bot lane and join the fight in either the middle or the top, just simply because Junkrat gets too much value if you stay away from the lane for too long. The big thing for Roll20 is still that towards the late game they can run 2 globals here. That's something that we can't highlight enough. Globals in general are amazing. For Sky Temple they are fantastic, and in the late game if you have 2 of them, just playing around your opponent is something that always is going to give you value and at least an alternative. The problem is that Goku now falls up, we see Falset dying up at the top, Junkrat already getting even more value, and this is a pretty heavy push that we see by C here.
Man, I just feel like Roll20 was setting up so well with the double camp pressure and having the globals. They waited to cap their Giants in the bottom, and so they could have the pressure in 2 lanes to hopefully get some damage done somewhere, force a response somewhere that they could take advantage of. Losing Falstad is rough, but he can fly back in. Dehaka's coming in too. Drag hits, cleanse though, and gets Shuyu out into a position where he can disengage.
Yeah, Luful is already on the move back as well. Did not go into Wolfrun here on level 1. We have him still with wave clear, but he's still able to move out of this one. Paradise is now, of course, alone at the bot lane, and that means a little lead in experience. If at this point, Stitches, I would have really liked him to at least try and unmount ETC here, just to make sure that a few of those minions are being lost. But with Dehaka being around, he was a little bit afraid of getting, first of all, into a power slide stun and then another drag connecting. There might have been a little bit too much pressure here. But of course, by now, we have CE with the lead in experience, and they're starting to take the first shots on the bot temple as well.
Well, Roll20 in holding off. After they lost Falstad, they just cleared out the camp from CE and are just now capping their bruisers. This bodes well for them as they still have a global in the top lane, even sending a second global up potentially, or just swapping things out so that Falstad can go elsewhere. But that's the beauty of having the double global situation, is that you can play more aggressively for more things at once, knowing that you have that advantage of them being able to come in, and come in they shall. Dehaka is starting to come in, as does a Falstad. Drag pulls Wind back. Justin takes a bunch of damage. Wind surviving way longer than he should have, as finally Buds brings him down with those Lucio on attacks.
Yeah, Wind dies, but that took way longer than he expected here. So they confirmed the kill, and he had no chance of actually walking away from this. But we have, in the meantime, still Junkrat at the top, and now we're coming back to the problem that we mentioned before. If you let him on the lane alone, then he can do just so much work. But it really showcases what we are going to, or what we can expect from the game. The globals for Roll20 are going to be used to try and set up advantageous fights for them. A numeric advantage that translates into kills. The problem is that they find themselves behind experience, and so far CE is doing fairly well, but this could actually start to change things because Shuyu is in a lot of trouble down here, but he can't commit enough.
Oh, wow.
That just hurts. The bird is down.
Another false start loss for Roll20 as the fight rages on in the bottom lane too. Wind using Future Ball, he's going to pull someone back into this. That happens to be Buds, who immediately just tries to wall ride to just speed out the other way. At least he buys some time for the rest of the team to live, but CE is attacking on multiple fronts. They're responding to the globals of Roll20 very well, and they're going to siege multiple lanes, the forts.
Yeah, and the big problem is that all of this just happened barely before level 10 was reached for Roll20, and they had their heroic abilities ready. So we have Putrid Bile as we expected. As mentioned before, it doesn't really give you too much if you go into Gorge here, not with the tools that Roll20 has to counter it. But of course, right now CE is just running the show. 3 kills against 1, that doesn't sound like much, but it's really the structural advantage that is the most important. The fort at the bot lane gone. The top fort basically eliminated. I mean, that's a shot or 2 and then it's also down. So right now CE making the plays here. And the globals giving Roll20 some value, but not nearly as much as they are hoping for. I feel that's something that's going to become more and more important as the forts are eliminated and we have more space on the map. But especially Q needs to be careful because he's been a primary target for them.
Yeah, and especially once those forts keep going down, it's not as safe for him to try to soak out on the map, putting the damage in. If he's going to continue to be one of the solo lanes for them so that they can rotate Lucio, Cassia, and ETC around to find picks elsewhere, then he has to play safely. And it's hard versus the frag launcher like that. Especially, you can see the range. When you put some English on it, those things fly clear across the map, it feels like.
Now, the one thing that I still have to point out is that Roll20's boss control is just better. We highlighted that a bit in the draft, but with Gust now, Mosh Pit, and also Ball of Lightning, there are definitely quite a few tools that Roll20 can later on use to dominate fights around the boss area, and that's something they have to. A good Mosh Pit would also really help them. Justin in a bit of trouble, and he finds himself on the wrong side of the fight. Goku barely saves it, but nope, we have Karazim dashing in, getting the kill, and it's a double as Cassia falls too. Cassia so far not really having the impact either that they were hoping for. Didn't go for the build that we've seen from the European teams with a quick commitment to Q. Instead we have the more standard style against the heavy melee setup team with charge strikes on level 1. Things are rough, Gilly.
That they are. They're rough for Roll20. There are still a lot of forts left. All of the forts, in fact, for CE, so that's a place to get some comeback experience for them. But the issue is, in that fight, Justin took a lot of damage early on in the fight, and then the chase down of Paradise was great, as that damage dealer normally is the melee assassin, but being willing to chase him down and do the damage from that. But meanwhile, KTY comes in with a Riptire, splits apart the whole entire team of Roll20, doing massive damage to the rest of the team, so nobody really able to bail him out. Everybody had to disengage. CE continues to lead on all fronts in this game, the 2-level lead.
CE hasn't lost a fort yet. They are way ahead in the game. Goku is in trouble, but Justin comes in. That could turn in favor of Roll20. If Justin gets a good Mosh here, Putrid Bile already used, but the rest of C comes in. Quick bullet. Yikes. ETC in trouble. Justin barely gets out. And good job by Cure. But the problem is that the Haga was still in play here. So 1 kill saves the rest. A cocktail from Greymane would have absolutely ruined them in the situation. On that bridge, that cocktail would have gotten massive value.
I was terrified of the death bridge. Not only from that, but man, those grenades were chunking from Junkrat. Only Goku goes down in the end. Now Roll20 undoubtedly finds a kill on Junkrat. In time, they also have some mercenary camp pressure in the top lane. So they're going to try to go for a sneaky boss play here. There is not 16 quite yet for CE, but especially no Junkrat for 30 more seconds. Drag catches Stitches.
Mosh.
Well done from Goku.
Mosh Pit comes in, and there are just no interrupts. So this is the party time. In comes Cassia with her ult, and a double kill is confirmed. This is more what we expected here, especially since Roll20. There are no real interrupts against the Mosh Pit, or at least very, very few that can reliably be used in a fight. So at this point, Justin commits to the Mosh Pit. He gets 2. They can confirm the next 2 kills, and that, of course, leads immediately to the boss. CE might just have grabbed level 16 and therefore an extra talent, but Roll20 is building up a bit of a momentum for themselves to close that experience gap. They're already destroyed now at the top of 4. They will get another one at the bot lane. That's really going to help to bring them a bit closer to level 16 as well.
Exactly. They're posturing up to make sure that they can take down or at least catch anybody if they try to make unsafe rotations to defend versus this boss. Mine used just to get Junkrat out of potentially danger zone with Goku there. And this whole entire time, Falstad safely soaking up so that he can get Roll20 to 16 for the next team fight, the next temple phase. The boss now has done its due diligence, taking out the fort. Roll20 not wanting to deal with a death bridge scenario. Again, 1 is enough for them. We'll leave that, go soak up the rest of the lanes, push some waves down, just get 16.
Yeah, and talking about Soak, they still have Falstad and Dehaka. Those are huge assets in the later stages of the game when you can put pressure onto the side lanes with your globals and then still join the objective fights or a boss battle. So that's definitely something to, once again, watch out for. Roll20 hasn't lost the keep yet. That's the most important part. And they just grabbed level 16, so they can fight on even footing with their opponent at this point.
No Executioner for Greymane to pair with the Putrid Bile, but we do see Alpha Killer. And that's pretty terrifying for Justing, who has been a target of CE basically this entire game. With so much from that, the Cursed Bullet, 7-sided strike too. Justing has to watch his positioning. Wind, though, also needed to watch his positioning. Gets caught by all of Roll20, who gets blown out, though. Perfectly done with the Concussive Mine and capitalizing on it.
Yeah, so it's a trade in tanks here, and Riptire also committed to. Didn't get a kill yet. CE still willing to chase this a little bit, and Roll20 is just saying, nope, we are not going to fight that just yet. They're setting up a bit of a trap. There's a couple of power spikes here, of course, and eventually they will have to react to the top, but they have the globals. If they get a kill here, that would be ideal. Cleansing Touch has been picked up by Karazim on 16. That's a huge asset in these fights, considering that we have so many lockdowns by Roll20, especially Goku has been on point with the Drax, but also Justin. So having the Cleansing Touch ready is great for them. Bullet again. Shuyu is just not afraid to throw that bullet out whenever. 30-second cooldown off, bam, straight to the face.
It forced the essence, so that's a good job to be able to do that and know that now he has far less essence here. We're going to see Goku go back so that he can deal with the top pressure, but a Temple is ready both in the top and in the bottom. For a while, Roll20 were holding off, just taking some of the shots in the bottom. But now with Dehaka leaving, looks like they're just going to be okay with taking the top, potentially rotating around.
Oh.
What are they doing here?
They want the mosh pit. Justing wants to play. They're looking for the mosh pit here. Dehaka goes in. The bullet hits immediately, but still, we have the connect. In comes the cleanse. They're starting to move in.
Oh! Sound barrier keeps him alive. Cure's still there. Roll20 are trying to work them into a trap here. Clint's used. Ancestor healing too. CE are running out of options to try to deal with the mosh, but they take out Cure.
This is no way. In comes Putrid Bile. Second kill confirmed. Cassian falls that down, and Lucio goes as well. CE with some great coordination there. And the best thing was really KTY with a concussive mine. It just simply completely annihilated ETC out of the fight.
Yeah, Justing's really struggling. Even with Showstopper, just cannot deal with all of the damage now from CE in this late game. CE, there's no Falstad here, there's no Cassia, there's no support, just an ETC and Goku the Dehaka as CE moves onto the core of Roll20.
CE with 10 kills against 2. They have the lead in the series already, but they want the 2-0 victory here. They are starting to move for the core, and Falstad, he might be back. He is going to have Gus, but is it going to be enough? It's 4 more seconds, and I don't think that they have it. CE goes in, confirms it, and that's a 2-0 victory for the Chinese team. What a dominant performance here on Sky Temple.
A far different game for them too. Game 1, they were behind a lot of the game, but were able to make the comeback on Towers of Doom. But here they had great laning setup. They seemed to really be able to deal just fine with the double global of Roll20. It just never really took off.
KDY on Junkrat performed so well. First of all, he dominated the bot lane. We already knew Dehaka has a losing matchup into Junkrat, but still, that was really well done. Then they several times ganked up on Falstad with his help. And in that last fight, Roll20 just wraps around, tries to approach the fight from the back and sneak up on them, and they were saying, okay, we need to get the mosh pit here, we need to get an isolation. And then Junkrat with one concussive mine just throws him over the wall, and all of a sudden there's no tank left anymore. and they just walk up onto Falstad, on Cassia with Projectile and obliterate both of them. And normally, that's what Justin is. He slides in, he face melts, he creates space for his teammates, for his damage dealers, but he found himself on the other side of the fight. He's like, boys, I need a few seconds because I have nothing here. And by the time he was finally back in the battle, it was already over.
Yeah, and that comes down to the one mosh pit that Justin hit on so many members that wiped CE, and CE adapting to that, recognizing that that is the win condition for Roll20, and they needed to make sure that they could deal with the mosh pits of Justin. Well done by CE. They win versus Roll20 2-0 in our final series of the group stage.
Impressive performance by CE, and that of course gives the Chinese community also a lot of hope here. Wind is taking the MVP for the game on his stitches.